Good afternoon, everybody. It is Monday, April 24th. This is a committee session of the Transportation and Environment Committee. We have a few items on our agenda today, all related to the FY24 operating budget. And we will start with the first item, which is a work session on the FY24 operating budget for the Washington Suburban Sanitary Commission, WSSC. I see we have a slew of folks from WSSC here, and we will start with Mr. Levchenko.
Sure. Before we get into introductions, I'm going to make a few summary comments about the budget, and then we do have a presentation from WSSC Water, which I think will be very helpful. They can also sort of hear from some of the staff as well, so that's a good opportunity for any questions you have on those particular issues. And then after the presentation, I may have a few more things to need to cover out of the packet, and then at that point, just questions and answers.
Sounds good.
As needed. So with that, just real briefly about the budget. The proposed operating budget is $931.2 million, which is an increase of about $66.6 million or 7.7% from the approved FY23 operating budget. The water and sewer operating expenses, which is a subset of that, is about $924 million. That's about an 8% increase. The largest increase is in what we call all other expenses, which I get to in my packet, and you'll hear some of that in the presentation as well. Also, you're seeing significant increases in heat, light, and power, and we can talk more about that. And then also there is an increase in salary and wages and pay-go. So we'll get into the details of all of this. And just a quick summary of the process, WSSC Water is a little bit different. We have a separate spending affordability process that the two counties utilize. Each fall, the two councils discuss the spending control limits with WSSC Water, and we have a bi-county work group of staff that put together recommendations on that. They work through a base case and then identify some options from there. And then the two councils hopefully come to agreement, which they did this past November 1st. So that process included ceilings on, for instance, a rate increase. And a rate increase ceiling of 7% was recommended at that time. The base case had actually come in at 8%, so that would require some reductions in order to get to the 7%, which we can talk about today. And then there was also ceilings with regard to operating expenses, new debt, and debt service. So it's a different process from our county department and other county agency process. And the funding sources are also different. It is a self-contained budget in that sense, that it's not part of our overall spending affordability process. We don't have a reconciliation list issue with regard to WSSC Water. To the degree there are increases and decreases, we have to address that through their revenue sources, primarily their volumetric rate increases and their fixed fees. So it does not directly impact other budgets. There are issues in terms of coordination on projects and things like that, but budgetarily it can be seen as a distinct process for purposes of today. I think with that, I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Powell to introduce the folks here today and also get us into their presentation to move forward.
Well, let's do that, General Manager Powell. Nice to see you.
Good afternoon. It's good to be here again. Thank you, Chair President Glass and Council Members Balcom and Stewart. It's a pleasure to be here before you again today to present now our operating budget as Mr. Levchenko shared. For the record, I'm General Manager and CEO Keisha Powell and proud to represent Maryland's largest water utility and the 8th largest in the country, which means it takes a lot to run this utility. It's a pleasure to be here with our team to present the details of the fiscal year 24 budget. And before I get into the slide deck, and I'll be assisted by our acting CFO, Letitia Carolina Powell, I do want to take a moment to recognize our commissioner, Eloise Foster, who is here representing the commission. And also we have Commissioners Dennis and Chair Bayonet, who also represent Montgomery County on the commission. I also want to recognize the members of our senior team and finance team that are here with us this afternoon, and those not in attendance that worked very diligently on this budget and to prioritize the priorities. I also want to thank and recognize the dedicated and talented WSSC water workforce who work so tirelessly to ensure that we're protecting over $9 billion worth of assets. And their hard work is also reflected in the budget that we present to you today. So without further ado, we'll go through the slides. So just to give those that may not be familiar with WSSC Water as yet, again, we are the largest water wastewater utility in the state of Maryland, among the largest in the country. We have a service area that spans 1,000 square miles between Prince George's and Montgomery counties. We proudly serve 1.9 million residents, and we have been providing safe, clean drinking water for 105 years counting. And as we shared before, there have been recent regulatory proposals by EPA that make it even more pressing and challenging for us to continue that track record. But we have leaned into those proposals, are looking into them related to the PFAS chemicals, the man-made chemicals, so that we understand what changes we may need to make to our treatment processes, which will not only have an impact in terms of having to spend additional capital dollars, but also long term it would have an impact on our operation and maintenance costs as well. So we pride ourselves on our track record, and we do intend to maintain that track record and continue to provide safe, clean drinking water to our customers, your constituents. Next. Our team is comprised of 1,630 employees at this point. Every day we are delivering 162 million gallons of drinking water to 1.9 million customers. We have 3 reservoirs, 2 water filtration plants, 60 water tanks, 55 pump stations, 6 water resource recovery facilities, and over 11,000 miles of pipeline and other appurtenances. And that's important to note, the scale of our operation, because again, that represents over $9 billion worth of assets. So as we have those assets in the ground now, we are always working to improve our existing infrastructure, but it's also necessary for us to, when we have to, make additional investments for new infrastructure, which we're doing at some of our treatment plants. Potomac, for instance, we are making some upgrades there to ensure that that plant continues to function optimally. We're also investing in other parts of our service area for new water mains to reduce our water loss, for instance. So investment in critical infrastructure is continuous, and because we have a lot of infrastructure in the ground, we have to make sure that we have the operation and maintenance budget to support the existing infrastructure and any new infrastructure that we bring online. We have been able to provide customer assistance to more than 17,000 customers. So even as we talk about the rate increase needed to support our operation and maintenance budget and our capital budget before, we are also thinking and have top of mind those customers that have affordability challenges. And again, we have provided assistance to over 17,000 in the amount of $5.3 million. and we're continuing to provide assistance. Last week, our commissioners approved an amnesty program as part of our revenue recovery strategy, because we still have a number of customers that are in arrears, all told to the tune of $56 million, which is impacting our revenues. And we intend to, through that program, continue to provide assistance, also provide means for customers to get their bills back in good standing through that process. And we're also looking to enhance our customer assistance program offerings. Next. I shared with you before the priorities that we have set for this first year together. It includes building a strong workforce, improving our service delivery, focusing on financial stewardship, again, regulatory changes that are on the horizon. We know that there is more out there besides PFAS that is being regulated. And we also want to focus on operational reliability and resilience. Just this morning, we discussed our power reliability and wanting to make sure that all of our facilities, our critical facilities that rely on power, are protected, and that we have the necessary redundancy, that we're working with our partners to ensure that we are as resilient in operation as possible. And one of the first things that came up in the discussion was cost. There is a cost to everything, but we have to make sure that we can continue, no matter what the circumstances are, and we have seen impacts around the country, that we can continue to provide service to our customers. And underpinning all of those priorities is a focus on diversity, equity, inclusion, and environmental justice. So again, focusing on affordability. We've also pulled recent data to look at where we have some chronic impacts for sanitary sewer overflows and basement backups, and the correlation to communities that would be considered disadvantaged communities, because we want to prioritize that in our planning as we are thinking about investments and capital planning for the future. Next. So with that, I will turn it over to our acting CFO, Letitia Carolina Powell. Thank you.
Good afternoon. For the record, I'm Letitia Carolina Powell, acting CFO. Next slide, please. So, as Mr. Levchenko mentioned earlier, our FY24 proposed budget is $1.6 billion, and the capital budget is increasing by $78 million, or nearly 13%, and our operating budget is increasing by 7.7%, or nearly $67 million. This proposed budget includes an average 7% water and sewer rate increase on the volumetric and fixed charges, and includes 40 new positions to support production, engineering, and construction, and customer service. And please note that the 31 positions that are being added for customer service don't impact the budget financially, as we are converting 31 temporary positions and reducing the budget for temp services, and so it's not having an impact on the rates. Next slide, please. So we have many cost drivers that have impacted the budget for fiscal year 24, and primarily it's driven by inflation, and just as inflation has impacted the U.S. economy and the citizens of the U.S. and Maryland, it's impacting WSSC. So chemicals, the budget for chemicals is increased nearly $10 million. That's a 74% increase, and the impact on the rates of the 7% rate increase, it's 1.2%. Paving is increasing in the budget by $6.7 million, and that paving requires asphalt, and the budget for asphalt, the costs are driven by oil prices. Heat, light, and power, that's up nearly $9 million or 46% increase. And construction is increasing 6% for our capital projects. DC Water projected regional sewage payment, the increase is $10.6 million. We actually, the budget for that was $60 million for fiscal year 23. For 24, we've increased it to $64 million. So we were informed after we had prepared the budget by DC Water in January that the actual increase for FY24 was going to be much larger. So there's $6.7 million that's not budgeted that we will have to absorb for fiscal year 24. We were also notified a few weeks ago that DC Water actually underbilled us based on their increased expenses for fiscal year 23 by $7.7 million. So that's additional money that we will have to cover this fiscal year.
Can I stop you right there?
Yes.
I'm intrigued by what you just said, that the DC Water Authority did not pay WSSC, and so our ratepayers now have to pick up the tab? Is that what you said?
They did. They underbilled us for fiscal year 23 due to...
Very different than what I heard. Okay. Disregard what I said. Keep going.
So PAYGO is increasing by $13 million, and that is to help reduce our reliance on debt to fund the capital budget or capital expenses. And then debt service is increasing by $6.6 million. And then lead and copper rule, there were some changes to that by the EPA, and that's another $3.4 million. And then IT infrastructure is $4.3 million. Next slide. So in addition to inflation, we do have other fiscal challenges. Declining water consumption is one of them. All of the low flow fixtures that people are installing are having an impact on our revenues. And then there's been a shift in consumption from higher tier higher tiers in our rate structure to actual lower tiers, and that's because a lot of people are teleworking now, so they're not in the business offices where those commercial properties we bill at a higher rate. So that's impacting our revenues. The higher customer delinquencies, talked about the inflationary pressures, and then supply chain issues. We've had some challenges there. And so we're also working to improve our financial metrics to avoid a downgrade from AAA to AA. Next slide. So some of the highlights of the budget, the capital budget, will be replacing 27 miles of small diameter water mains at a cost of $87 million and 6.5 miles of large diameter water mains at a cost of $79 million, and rehabilitating 25 miles of small diameter sewer mains and laterals at $65 million, and 10 miles of sewer mains in environmentally sensitive areas at $55 million. And then on the operating budget side, we'll be painting 4 elevated tanks, and that's not just to make the tanks pretty. It will extend the useful life of the tanks by protecting them from corrosion, and that's at a cost of $4.4 million. The revised lead and copper rule compliance, which I discussed previously, and then maintaining a strong cybersecurity program at $2.4 million, and facility maintenance and repair projects at $2.4 million. And then the acoustic fiber optic monitoring, that's a very successful program where we monitor the PCCP pipes because when they break, it can cause catastrophic damage. So monitoring those pipes, that's an additional cost of $1.4 million. Next slide. So when we came to you back in the fall for spending affordability, we had requested an 8% rate increase. The number that was approved was 7%. And so we did have to make some reductions to the requested budget. So here list some of the reductions that we made in order to get to the 7%. I won't go through all of them, but daily maintenance and repairs, we did reduce the budget for that by $4.4 million. We reduced the chemicals budget, although it increased substantially in the proposed budget, we did reduce it some by $800,000. And then our laptops refresh, our laptops are on average over 4 years old. That was a reduction of $750,000. And then a mainframe assessment information system. That's something that we deferred to the future. Fire hydrant testing, that's almost another $600,000 that was reduced from the budget, as well as the other items that are listed here. Next slide. So this slide shows how each operating dollar is spent at a high level. 40 cents out of every dollar goes to fund capital projects through debt service and PAYGO. Another 40 cents is for operations and maintenance, and then 20 cents out of each dollar is allocated to support services. Next slide. So here we have the operating budget funding sources and uses. In that top graphic there, we can see that water and sewer charges, that would be our volumetric rates. That's the largest source of our revenue at 84% of total operating revenue. And our fixed fees are the infrastructure investment and account maintenance fees, and they make up less than 10% of our revenue, which is lower than most utilities, much lower. So that's something that we will be looking to address in fiscal year 25. And in the graphic below that, you can see that debt service at nearly 36%, or $333 million, is the largest single line item in our budget, in our operating budget. Next slide. So here we have the capital budget sources and uses, and the primary source of funding for the capital program is bonds and cash, and the cash piece would actually be the PAYGO. And then the largest portion of the capital use of the capital funds is sewer projects, with water projects not far behind that. Next slide. So here we have our quarterly customer bills comparison at various levels of consumption. So the far right hand corner there, or up the column, shows the proposed bills at 7%. This chart here is different from what was in the preliminary proposed budget, slightly because we had previously calculated consumption based or bill examples based on 55 gallons per day of usage for a typical customer per person. But what we've been seeing due to the decline in consumption is it's more like 50 gallons per day per person. So we've adjusted our typical household of three-person household of 150 gallons per day to reflect that reduced consumption as an example of a typical bill. So for fiscal year 23, a typical three-person household consuming 150 gallons per day, the bill that they would see is $234.96. With a 7% bill increase, that bill in FY24 would be $251.39, which is $16.43 per quarter, or $5.48 per month. Next slide. Now here is this slide compares WSSC's quarterly bill with some of our regional peers, that being DC Water, Baltimore, and Fairfax. As you can see by looking at the yellow, the orange portion of the bar charts, that represents the fixed fees, and WSSC's fixed fees are much lower than our peer utilities. And what that translates into is more revenue volatility, especially when consumption falls. When consumption falls, the fixed portion of the bill stays fixed, but the revenue, the volumetric piece, declines, so that means we'll bring in less revenue. So as a result of the pandemic, with people's usage declining, and our fixed fees being such a small portion of our bill, we did see huge declines in our revenue. So as I mentioned, the fixed fees are much lower. One thing I also would like to point out is that our CAP customers don't pay fixed fees, so that is a benefit. They also don't pay the Bay restoration fee that is levied by the state. Next slide. So here's another slide that has some comparisons. Again, on the left, it shows our fixed charges for an average residential bill of 150 gallons per day, and WSSC Water's fixed charges are among the lowest of peer agencies. And then on the right, the bill as a percentage of median income is also very affordable when compared to peer agencies. The next slide, please. Here we have a rate increase comparison. I'd like to point out that it's not shown on this slide, but historically, DC Water and Baltimore have received much higher rate increases than WSSC Water, so that revenue is already in their base. So for DC Water in FY23, they are showing a 9.5% rate increase and 3.3% for FY24, but they have a much larger fixed increase of 11%. For WSSC, that first line shows our volumetric and fixed rate increases. And for FY25, we do have a change here. We've increased that to 8%, and I'll discuss that later on in the presentation. Next slide, please. So here is another comparison for fiscal years 2000 through 2023. And when you look at the cumulative bill increase since fiscal year 2000, WSSC is well below the U.S. city average and below regional peers. And the rate, I just wanted to point out again that the rate increases are needed to invest in our operations and to maintain the infrastructure. Next slide, please. Okay. So here we have the financial status over the past 5 years for the combined water and sewer operating funds. That first line there shows our revenues from water and sewer consumption. And if you look at fiscal year 20, that's when we were hit with the pandemic, and we had a 5% rate increase that year. So we would have expected our revenue to go up by $31 million, but instead it only went up by $3 million, and that was due to the challenges that I mentioned on previous slides with the revenue. We had a 6% rate increase in FY21, which also did not result in the expected revenue. And so when you look at the average growth for the 4 years, we actually see an average of about 4% when you look at the 16.7% growth since fiscal year 18. And it looks okay when you look at the overall at the bottom, when you see the growth since the beginning of fiscal year 18 in the net, our net revenue of 39, our fund balance grew by almost 40%. But when you look at our expenses, for instance, under expenses for operating expenses for fiscal year 21, our expenses were lower than fiscal year 20. And that's because we had to implement some drastic savings plans to offset the revenue that wasn't coming in. And the reductions that we made and the deferred maintenance, that's not sustainable, and that is something that the rating agencies did point out to us. But we had savings plans in FY20, FY21, and FY22 so that we could come in well below what our revenues were generating so that we could maintain the AAA bond rating. But again, that is not sustainable. Next slide, please. So this slide shows the declining consumption trend that we've been seeing, and this isn't just unique to WSSC. This is other water utilities are also experiencing a decline in water consumption, and since fiscal year 20, our water consumption is down by 5.9%, and sewers down by 3.3%. And this is having a significant impact on our revenue, and this is that shift in consumption patterns that we've been seeing where more usage, less usage is coming from our non-residential customers. And just for an example, the combined water and sewer rate for Tier 4 is $24.23 per 1,000 gallons of usage, and Tier 1 is only $14.21 per 1,000 gallons of usage. So as customers or our customers use more water in their residential homes as opposed to businesses, that has a significant impact on our revenues. Next slide, please. So this slide speaks to the delinquencies that we had. Pre-pandemic delinquencies were at $37 million. During the pandemic, they grew up to $70 million, and they have since fallen to over $50 million. But as General Manager Powell mentioned, we are working to address these delinquencies through various programs, amnesty programs, and other programs to help people become current so that they can start paying their bills, their water bills. Next slide. So I won't read everything that's on this slide, but here are some of the feedback, some of the comments that we had received from the rating agencies regarding our financials. Moody's, they rated us AAA with a stable outlook. But one of the factors that they said could lead to a downgrade is failure to raise rates or levy an ad valorem tax when needed to support operations and debt. S&P rated us AAA with, but they also too said that if management is unable to effectuate necessary rate increase or contain costs, which results in reductions in reserves, this is something that could lead to a lowering of our rating by one or more notches. And Fitch, they rated us AAA with a negative outlook, and that was primarily due to our leverage ratios, which exceeded 10 times during the pandemic. And so the factors that could lead to a downgrade is failure to secure rate increases that satisfactorily support operations, continued robust capital investment, and declining leverage. Next slide. So when we met with Moody's, one of the concerns that they expressed to us was that we did pull a lot of levers in order to maintain the AAA. They were concerned about the cuts that we made to operations and capital. And in looking at our metrics, they said, you know, these really are not AAA metrics. They're more of a AA3. So they shared with us their AAA medians. And on the right is where WSSC water lands, and on the left are what they consider AAA. And most of the utilities that they rate are enterprises of county or city. Now, the first selected indicator here, the first two are actually favorable. Median family income, we're at 165%, well above the AAA medians. And then asset condition at 42 is also well above. And I think that speaks to our investment in infrastructure. We've put a lot into our infrastructure, so that is very favorable. So what I'll do now is focus on what's in the box, the blue box there. Our debt to operating revenues, the AAA is at 1.9 and we're at 4.7. Debt service coverage is about 3.29 and we're at 1.6, and that's something that we are intending to work on improving. And then their days cash on hand is at 827, and we are at 201. Next slide, please. So we have developed a strategy to maintain our AAA rating because that is a key part of preserving our long-term affordability for our customers. If we were to be downgraded, that would mean that we would have our borrowing costs would increase, and that would mean either more cuts or higher rate increases. A negative outlook, it does have a time limit, so this fall would be about 24 months after the negative outlook was issued. So we'd have to put something into place very quickly in order to maintain the AAA. So that's something that we had been working on, and we believe that then we hope that we will maintain the AAA come the fall rating. And as General Manager Powell mentioned, that we have initiated plans to reduce delinquencies to pre-COVID levels, and we're going to continue to focus on external funding opportunities to grow our revenues and monetize surplus assets and sell intellectual property. Next slide, please. So here we have some of the recommended actions to address rating agency concerns. We are focusing on the 3 metrics listed here, bringing down that leverage ratio, which is the total debt divided by the funds that are available for debt service, increasing our days cash on hand, and improving the debt service coverage ratio. Next slide, please. So here's the revised forecast that we've developed in order to help improve our metrics and maintain the AAA bond rating. In the preliminary proposed forecast for FY25, we had a lower rate increase projected for 25, but we have increased it to 8% in order to help improve our financial metrics. We've also, and we also increased it to 8% in fiscal year 26. PAYGO, we've increased. It's going from $44 million in FY24 to 65 million in 25 to 177 million in fiscal year 29, and that's to really reduce our reliance on debt to fund the capital program. And then so and here we will show that if you look down to our liquidity and reserves, we have a significant increase projected by FY 29 to help us continue to maintain that AAA bond rating. Next slide, please. So with the projected increased rate increase for FY 25 and 26, we are improving our debt service coverage under the Fitch model stress case. We are moving from in FY 24 from 1.31 to 1.5 by fiscal year 29. And then days cash on hand under the stress case for the proposed is at 250 for FY 24, but we plan to increase it to 310 by fiscal year 2029. And with that, I will hand it over to the general manager.
Thank you. So in summary, as Ms. Carolina Powell suggested, there is a lot of work that is going into ensuring that we are preserving our bond rating, and even while we are moving through into fiscal year 24, because we do have the negative outlook that has been placed. We have equated the downgrade to an impact, a financial impact, and our finance team estimated that if we were to have a downgrade, that would be equivalent to $49 million over 30 years. And we've looked at what that $49 million would pay for. That would be as much as 42, potentially impact 42 positions, or 200 or so an investment in our fleet to overturn the fleet. It would also impact our ability to invest in capital, in additional capital projects. So while this proposed budget does meet the spending affordability limit of 7% for water and sewer rate increases, we have to note that the reductions that she talked about back on slide 10 are not sustainable. When you are delaying more than $5 million in maintenance for maintaining the facilities that we have right now, that is a significant impact to the operations and our ability to ensure that we're meeting not only the permit, but our requirements and our commitments to our customers. There are also other things there that begin to impact things that are related to safety for our workers. So again, not sustainable cuts or deferrals. Our budget does reflect the increase in inflation, and we continue to talk about the increases in costs that we're seeing, as much as a 74% increase in chemical costs and other things that are necessary for us to operate. We do have the impact of the arrearages, and again, putting a program in place to tackle that aggressively, while at the same time making sure that we're providing additional customer assistance opportunities. And the increased regulatory mandates, all of those things come with a cost. So as we talk about PFAS, you will hear from EPA that funding has been made available, but we know and they are aware that it is not enough funding to deal with the issue holistically. So while we are aggressively pursuing external funds, we still have to have funding. The external funds are not enough to sustain or fill the funding gap that we see. I think that as we move forward, we are very much focused. We established an Office of Performance and Accountability in the General Manager's office. The last time we were here to talk about the capital program, a concern was raised about a particular project, and we responded and got on that right away. We want to make sure that that you and our customers are aware of where we are on the capital program, and that we are making the investments that we have committed to make with the funds that we have that have been approved. So with that, we will take any questions that you have.
Thank you very much for the thorough presentation. I know that in addition to the information you provided, Mr. Levchenko provided some highlights in his packet as well. Not to have to revisit all of this, I have questions of my own. Mr. Levchenko, is there anything you want to highlight without regurgitating everything?
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think there's just a few points in my packet that just want to make sure we cover, and then we can go back to sort of a Q&A.
Great.
First, as part of this action on the WSSC water budget, both councils also act on system development charges, and those charges are not recommended by WSSC Water to change this year. They've not actually changed in many, many years, and there is some concern about deficits in the SDC fund. We talked about it a bit during the CIP discussion. They do have an option to debt finance if they need to within that fund to accommodate short-term funding issue. But I do think we will need to revisit that in the near future about what, if and when we need to increase those fees. But there's no proposed change right now, and that would be a resolution that both councils would adopt as part of their final budget process. So more to come on that. Also, with regard to salary and wages, past councils, both for Montgomery and Prince George's County, have agreed that salary increases should be comparable or less than what is approved by both councils for their office worker salary schedules. We don't have those details yet about where we stand on that. WSSC Water is still in negotiations with their unions, so they have a marker built into their budget to accommodate some increases, but that will have to be revisited closer to the end of budget to determine if we're in alignment or if the councils want to see some adjustment there. So more to come on that. Let's just see. You heard some of the structural issues that Ms. Powell mentioned. Staff does recommend that ideally the two councils' oversight committees, the RT&E committee and the Prince George's Council's TIEE committee, get together after budget to talk more about this long-term financial plan, which identifies some significant rate increases that are required. And also, as you heard about with some of those metrics that the bond rating agencies have put forth and that WSSC Water has begun to react to and basically increase a lot of the requirements within their financial plan, we're seeing that squeeze. And I think it would be helpful for both councils to take a deeper dive in that after budget. Prior to the spending control limits this fall, which is really the kickoff of the budget process from our perspective, I think it would be helpful for both councils to have that background in place and perhaps come to some consensus on where they want this to be heading, understanding the numbers in a bit more detail than we can get into during the budget process. I think that's sort of a key element of all of this is balancing rate increases, all of the new requirements that WSSC Water's noted, unusual inflationary increases, regulatory issues. There's a lot going on that we will need to balance going forward. Even with this proposed budget, as you heard, they still have some additional work to do because of those increases that they're experiencing in the charge from DC Water. So a lot to happen still. But with all that, staff was supportive of the proposed budget as it had come forth from WSSC Water in its March 1st transmittal. And just a note on schedule, the Prince George's Council's TIE committee had a similar discussion last week. They were supportive of the proposed budget. We have a bi-county meeting set up in mid-May, which is also specific to the bi-county agencies, WSSC Water, the joint park and planning expenses, and the Washington Suburban Transit Commission are taken up during that process. So we have the opportunity then for the two councils to get together and talk through any remaining issues that there are at this point. And with that, I'll turn it back to you for any questions.
Great, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Lipchenko and Ms. Powell and the entire team for the thorough presentation. And of course, Commissioner Foster, thank you for being here as well. So I have, by way of serving on this committee for a number of years, I've engaged in this conversation. I've followed. I've asked lots of questions which all lead to similar answers and responses over the years. And so in looking at one of the last slides that was presented, it was the comparison charts to other jurisdictions and the rate increases. Yeah, I think this is one of them. Let me flip my screen. Yeah, it's if you want to go back to that one, perfect. Thank you. So according to this chart, the increased comparison WSSC is lower than the other jurisdictions. And I think our role is to try and put some framework around the budget, recognizing that you all are, WSSC is an independent agency that is dependent on other governments for their funding. And so we want you to be able to do your work and keep our water flowing and keep our infrastructure intact, but need to be mindful of our ratepayers and taxpayers as well. And I'm just curious, as we look at other utilities in the region, is their debt service the same as ours? Are they operating in the same, under the same realities with decreasing water consumption that's then putting additional pressure on their rates as well? You're nodding, so I trying to get the big picture of how our rate structure is compared to the other utilities, and I think what's even more important than that is the functionality of these utilities.
Well, first I'll say question. It is, and I'll start, and then sure. You know, the team can chime in because they prepared this and kind of know what they're comparing. But just in my experience, I've worked for two of the comparison utilities, and so have a bit of knowledge there. I can say that from utility to utility, operations may not exactly be an apples to apples comparison. But with that said, you know, one of the utilities doesn't provide their own drinking water treatment. They don't have drinking water treatment plants. We have two. Our service area is larger, much more vast. You know, we are the largest water utility in the state of Maryland. And when you compare, you know, to the other utilities there that are smaller, they have smaller operations, but have also had to increase their rates more. It could be, in the case of one, regulatory requirements, consent decree programs. Those often drive the need for significant rate increases, but at the same time, that takes away from being able to invest in other critical infrastructure. I think WSSC Water, we have had two consent decrees, which I'm sure you've heard about before, one for the sanitary sewer system and now one at Potomac where we're having to make upgrades to that plant. And so we have been able to, minimize, or I think we've asked for more, but we've had the same types of regulatory requirements that are unfunded mandates, and we have had to make adjustments in other areas to accommodate the need to have money for those regulatory requirements. We have more boots on the ground because our service area is larger, but we have, and I'm looking at the numbers to see how many of our team members actually live within our service area. They are impacted by inflationary increases as well, yet salaries have been a bit stagnant. So when we are comparing to other counterparts in the region and why some of our positions continue to be a revolving door, where we're having to recruit and train, because they're going to these other utilities to make more, and willing to drive those distances for that. So there are some, when you ask about consumption, we all talk about the consumption conundrum. We want to do the right thing. There is a requirement to focus on conservation. I'm sorry, not consumption, conservation.
I like the alliteration of all of it, by the way.
We're all required to focus on conservation, but that does impact the amount of water that is used, and that is where we get our revenue from. And so we're looking at alternative sources of revenue, but that still won't be the lion's share. And so that also drives rate increases as well. When there is less usage, we have to make up for it. So just a little bit of context that I see when I look at these numbers. We are on the low end to be, among the largest utilities in this country. We have not had, that headroom, the rate increases that are needed to really truly invest in our infrastructure. The cuts that we have had to make are unsustainable to our operation. We deferred more than $100 million in capital, and the investment in our people has lagged behind as well. I don't know if you want to add anything.
Just a couple of things, like for instance, some of the utilities such as Fairfax, they're not as old as WSSC, so they may not have had to invest as much in their infrastructure yet, so their debt service most likely would not be on the scale that ours is. Also, the customer mix. Some may have more wholesale customers. Some may have more commercial customers than we do. So that would have an impact as well. And then the other thing that I had mentioned earlier was fixed fees. I believe Baltimore, they have very high fixed fees, and so does DC Water. So just that makeup of the bill components has an impact too. So if they're getting a larger piece of their revenue from something that's fixed, it won't require as much of a rate increase on the volumetric.
All of that context is helpful, and I think it's really important to the conversation, and it's why I wanted to just pull up this slide once again, because we at the council are having a larger conversation about the budget and how to provide support for all the different facets of life. And when people are learning about various proposals for increases of fees, taxes, whatever it might be, everyone gets concerned. But in greater context of at least our water utility, historically and in the current in the current rate and rate of growth, we are in good context. We are in good standing. You all have been you have been wise in the investments, and I would say you have also been partners with Montgomery County and Prince George's counties, and I think that's the important key. And so when we talk about the rates, we're looking at it regionally and keeping our residents and our ratepayers forefront in our mind. So I appreciate that context. I don't know if either of my colleagues have any questions. Councilmember Balcom?
Thank you. Very thorough presentation. So thank you for that. When I was reviewing the packet that Mr. Levchenko provided, the thing that just popped out with a circle and a couple stars was debt service. And it's following up with the information about the bond rating agency that not only looks that Fitch, which suggested the debt service, but then also the ability to raise rates. I think that's really important information to look at alongside of the budget, because the two are just go hand in hand. So I am concerned about the debt service, and I think that that's something that I don't think we have the time or capacity to look at that in the context of this budget, but I do think that that's something that we need to look at in not even long term, but relative short term, to look at how we address those issues.
I agree with you, and what I would ask is, could you provide a little more context as to the debt services, right? Because the debt services is a direct correlation to the work that is being done, the infrastructure that is being built, and probably even more importantly, the infrastructure that's being maintained.
So we issue bonds, borrow money to pay for all of the infrastructure investments, and the debt service is what we pay when we pay back the money that we borrowed to fund the infrastructure.
Yeah, I got that part. Yeah.
Right. The classic definition of debt services, but can you speak about it in the practical effects? What, in recent years, as the debt services has grown, what are the projects that we're funding, or looking down the road, what infrastructure projects do we need that we know needs attention?
Well, one of the large ones was the consent decree. That was extremely costly. And then we have the Potomac Plant consent decree. Brian, did you want to?
For the record, Brian Halloran, Capital Budget Section Manager. Yeah, so our sanitary sewer overflow consent decree over the last 10 to 15 years has been one of our largest. We've invested about $1.6 billion in that project. It's also just our regular ongoing investments in our infrastructure. We have 4 what we call reconstruction programs, 2 for water pipes and 2 for sewer pipes. And so those are typically 4 of our largest programs, is we are just on a regular basis out there replacing these pipes that at times are 100 years old. And so we just have to continually cycle, because if the pipes last for 100 years, which some of them do, you know, we need to be replacing at least 1% each year to try to just maintain the current status on our condition. We also have significant investments in Blue Plains, which is the wastewater treatment plant owned and operated by DC Water and treats about 63% of our wastewater. So we are a partner in that, and we contribute to the capital projects down at Blue Plains. And that's one of the other very large components of our capital program.
And then from the perspective of the percentage of the budget, is that remained relatively constant, or has that been growing through the years?
Well, interesting. The spending control limits process, one of its goals was to try to keep debt service within about that 40% number. We're in the high 30s right now. So from a percentage standpoint, we've been able to stay within that metric that we created for ourselves. But of course, the budget has grown over time, so debt service has grown too. But as you heard, over the past 10 or 15 years, we've had a lot of catch-up work and consent decree work that has really put some strain on that. And the financial plan in the proposed budget does assume, as one strategy, increasing PAYGO over the 6-year period, as one strategy to try to keep the debt service at a manageable level. And that's not just for that 40% metric, it's also for the bond rating agency metrics, which are much tougher than they used to be. So it's a combination of a lot of catch-up in our below-ground infrastructure, water and sewer, over the past 15 years, as well as the consent decree work that you heard about, cost increases, especially in the last few years. That's all creating a complicated puzzle here to try to fix. And that's why I think we do need to have some discussion after budget about how do we have a stable long-range financial plan. What are the strategies? Rate increase levels. It's hard enough to deal with rate increases each year with both councils, but it would be helpful if the two councils had some understanding and consensus beyond the first year. Not an agreement as to what they would necessarily be, but some understanding of where we see the trends going. And then also, as I mentioned, PAYGO or other ways to try to modulate debt service over time. But it is one of those key drivers of the fiscal plan. How do we keep debt service manageable?
Thank you. And I'm assuming there's also long range which big projects are coming up, but then you don't have any control over the emergency projects that happen. So I think there's a little bit of that. And
there's always a big project. We have the biosolids bioenergy project in Prince George's. It's probably the largest standalone project that WSSC Water's ever built. So that's moving through construction now. You heard, well, what about the PFAS issue? Well, that could add costs to any number of projects, possibly even the bioenergy project. So there's always going to be regulatory changes that we can't necessarily predict now, or maybe we can predict something going forward. We do know that we have 12,000 miles of underground pipe, and we're right now not really at the level we want to be at for that. So I expect that will need to be considered as part of a future planning effort. When do we ramp back up to some of the levels we were at maybe 5 years ago? It's okay in a strained environment for a few years to maybe dial back a little bit, but that's not a long-term viable approach.
Councilmember Stewart.
Thank you, and thank you to Councilmember Balcom for raising those issues. And I imagine, maybe not with Baltimore City, but as you mentioned, Ms. Powell, the difference is our aging infrastructure. And I know there is a great deal of catch-up work that needs to get done, and I thank you for doing all that work. Thank you also for the amnesty program that is coming up. I was very glad to hear about that and the delinquencies, so that people can basically catch up, reset, and move forward. I think that'll be excellent. And the only other thing, I think my colleagues were thorough in their questions, you all were thorough in your responses. The only other thing I wanted to draw people's attention to was your racial equity and social justice chapter in the report, and what is up in the packet on the county website, because I think it's an excellent how you went through the racial equity and social justice work that you all have been doing, and highlighting some of those projects. And in particular, just wanted to pull out the disparity study that WSSC completed in 2022, and I know it was there are some recommendations coming out from that, and I just didn't know if you all had started working on that yet. I know 2020 that you just received it pretty recently, but I thought it looks very thorough, and was just interested if you had any feedback, remarks on that.
Yes, thank you for raising that. And all of that work, the team has really leaned into that even before my joining. A focus on diversity, equity, inclusion, and environmental justice in our capital planning. We are trying to take it a few steps further and looking at how we plan to really focus on those communities that have been disadvantaged in both Montgomery and Prince George's County, and looking at the correlation of data where we're seeing issues like basement backups and sanitary sewer overflows, and looking at how that data aligns with those communities so that we can use that to prioritize, in addition to the tools that have been made available by the state of Maryland and EPA. So would be happy to follow up with you, and you'll see that in our planning as we move forward. Where the disparity study is concerned, that gave us an opportunity to look at how we maximize utilization of MBE, WBE, small local business enterprises even more within our program. So we have made some updates to the program, which we presented in January. And I'm happy to say that some of our team members are with the governor today for the bill signing, which is extending our program for another 5 years. So we will be doing a Tap Into Business event on May 30th, where we will highlight opportunities to engage those partners in the work that we're doing. We want to maximize participation, particularly where we're able to fund projects with money through the bipartisan infrastructure law funding. So we're continuing to have that focus. And our new deputy, well, she's not new, but now the Deputy General Manager of External Affairs, Christy Bickham, is here. She's leading our external funding task force, and the whole team of folks has been looking at opportunities to pursue even more external funding. A lot of that funding is tied to investing in disadvantaged communities. And the last thing I'll say is we did submit for congressionally directed funding or earmarks for the unserved and underserved program to connect those communities that need to be connected. And we recognize that there are many that just have affordability challenges, so we're trying to address that within that program as well.
Great, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Last thing I just want to bring to all yours attention is with regards to one of the proposed reductions to, let me just get the verbiage correct, with regard to fire flow testing services. It just so happens that over the last year I've been working with some constituents who are trying to build an accessory dwelling unit in their on their property. This is an email that I distinctly remembered receiving, and this is from August 15th of last year, in which the constituent wrote, the issue is the issue is getting WSSC to say the water flow for my sprinkler system and for fire protection in the neighborhood is sound. That is, WSSC needs to find out if the fire hydrant works. According to my contractor, we cannot get the final sign-off for inspections for the closing of the interior of the ADU. This means the delay will have been 6 to 7 weeks. Is that the same fire hose system that you're referring to in the reductions?
Well, I'm not specifically sure where what the cuts are touching. Our chief engineer is here and can speak to that, but that is what I'm referring to when I say it's not sustainable. We have to make sure that we have adequate fire protection. And I think some of it is leading to delays in us being able to do the testing necessary, and perhaps if we've used an external vendor as well to support our efforts. Mike?
Thank you, Keisha. So the fire flow testing that was referred to as a budget cut is a operational process where we go out and we test the flows in the system. That particular accessory dwelling unit, if it's still active, if you send us the address, we'll check into the actual fire flows there, and we can figure out what exact issue it was there.
I appreciate that. It's open. It's operational. There's a resident who's living there, but in reviewing the proposal, and I came upon that terminology. Right. I distinctly remember this issue, and we went back into our records and saw it. And just wanted to share with you, and I appreciate the general manager relating this real life constituent experience to the budgetary implication or the need to make sure that rates are the rates meet the expectation of services.
Absolutely. In the water main replacement program, as we replace the old aged pipes, we also get better fire flows there. So thank you very much.
There you go. We're full circle. Not hearing any other comments. Thank you all for joining us this afternoon for the full testimony and all the information.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. And so, for the purposes of Mr. Levchenko and our colleagues, not hearing any objection to the budget as proposed. Okay, there you go. That's coming full circle. Now.
You made her nervous.
No. It was on my end. There's it.
Just forgot to vote.
No, thank you all. Thank you, Mr. Levchenko, as well. Next, there are two items wrapped up in one, and that is the FY24 recommended operating budget for the Department of General Services, Utilities, Non-Departmental Account, and the FY23 supplemental appropriations for the Utilities NDA in the amount of $8,286,672. Mr. Maya.
Okay, good afternoon. Yes, as you mentioned before you, there are two decision points, one on the 23 supplemental appropriation request and one on the 24 recommended budget. There's cost increases in both the supplemental and the 24 recommended budget. The underlying issue for the increases is fundamentally the same. What's happened is the FY23 approved budget had assumed a certain amount of electricity usage in that budget, and that assumption did not turn out to be accurate when we look at the current year's actual usage and estimate numbers. The NDA, just for those who are watching, it funds the utilities use in a county government, not the outside agencies, does not cover recreation or fleet or certain mass transit facilities. Most of the NDA's costs are electricity, about 75%, so that is the main driver of the cost increases. And if you look at tables E1 and E2, what you'll see is the actual usage estimated in FY23 is about 11% higher than what was assumed in the approved budget. And that number for FY23, the estimate, is actually on track with what we've been using in FY21 and FY22. So all that's to say is that between the usage and the actual unit cost increases as a result of inflation, we are essentially seeing cost increases in utilities budget, and hence both the $8.2 million increase in the supplemental appropriation and the $9.6 million increase in the 24 recommended budget. The other cost increase for FY24 is related to a project that's currently underway to outfit the Brookville Transit Depot with a microgrid. That project is the vendor that the county has partnered with is installing the microgrid at their cost, but is recouping their costs through the county through a 20-year lease payment process. So the FY24 budget includes the first full year of the lease payment, and hence that's adding $1.5 million to the FY24 budget. So staff's recommendation for both the appropriation request and the 24 budget is to, for the appropriation, staff's recommendation is to approve. For the 24 recommended, staff's recommendation is to place both cost increase items on the rec list as high priority.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Mia. I'm looking at the numbers for the utility NDA, and it says that it's increased 49%. And I distinctly wrote down when we were receiving the presentation from WSSC for their increase in the heat, light, and power, and there was at 46%. So very close, right? And it's important that they are close so that these estimates are all in the same ballpark, and they clearly are. Who hit the home run, I'm not sure, but they're close. Director Dice, let me ask you, I only have one question. The energy costs and utility costs, how does that square with the county's continued telework policy? And has that been offset in any way? People not commuting to the offices as often as they might have been, or not being in the office as much?
Wow. David Dice, Director of General Services. That's not the question I anticipated you asking.
No.
But I'll answer that question later. Because I want to brag on the fact that we are being successful in our energy saving activities. But
let me know the question you want me to ask. I'll see if I oblige. Yeah.
Well, you just ask, are we being successful? The answer is yes.
That's too easy a question.
I know. Well, I can give you examples that are stunning, but the short answer to that is many of our buildings are older, and as a result, the most glaring example of which is the big tall building across the street, the executive office building. That building is either on or it's off. There is no ability in the existing system, it's a 40-year-old building, to temperature control floors, front of the building, back of the building. It's as if, quite literally, as if there were a big switch in the basement to turn it on or off. So it's either heating or it's cooling. If there's one person there, you're heating or cooling the whole building, which is why oftentimes when our office of management and budget staff are cranking numbers to get the budgets over here and they're working weekends in the wintertime, I suggest wearing sweaters and hats, because I really don't want to turn on the whole building for one floor. But that is the case with many of our buildings. Now, we are in the new buildings that we build are much smarter with building control systems where we can do that. And where we can do that, the answer is yes. Consumption drops as the buildings are less occupied. And where we can control heat, cool, and light by floors, we certainly are saving energy. But it's not significant enough an impact because of the age of the systems in our buildings to give you a measurable positive. I'd love to, but this is why those of you that are familiar with our capital project at the Holiday Park Senior Center, as we work on converting that to a net zero building and installing control systems, will become a prototype for what we need to do for the other 400 buildings that we need to convert.
Understood. Thank you. Colleagues?
I just have a process question. For the Brookville Bus Depot reconciliation high priority, it would seem like this would be a non-discretionary increase.
They are. These are contractual obligations. Right. We don't have an option. These are long-term agreements where we offset the good news is we had no capital outlay for this. We don't own this system. It is entirely owned by Alpha Structure, operated and maintained by them, but we are paying their costs back to them over 25 years.
Thanks. I don't know if we differentiate that in the reconciliation list. I think I've seen that in other packets.
So this is a conversation that, taking a step back, there are budgetary obligations that are obligatory, right? And so I think that I would agree that we need to put this as a high priority. And what I will do when I have conversations with council staff, who will be providing all of us with updates on the reconciliation list for all the committees, there will be an additional delineation between obligatory obligations. Little redundant. That's why you didn't want me asking you a question. Meeting those obligations. So not hearing it. Did you answer the question you wanted to ask?
I just want to
I'll give you the floor, sir.
Thank you, sir. I think in a packet full of charts and numbers, it's easy to lose sight of the big picture. And I just wanted to give a couple of examples in these charts. None of these charts relate to our solar. We have 11 megawatts of solar that is spread throughout the county facilities. And that's currently saving us over $1.5 million a year. The chart on page 5 of those completed projects, again, does not include that $11 million at $1.5 million, 11 megawatts at $1.5 million savings, and yet we're still saving $5.8 million over what we would otherwise do. So I want to congratulate Michael Yambrock and our Office of Energy and Sustainability for this. This is a staff of 4 people who are working to save the county untold amounts of money. And when we hear about microgrids that we're installing and continue to install, we just recently cut the ribbon on the Scotland Center Resilience and microgrid. But a glaring example of why these things work is the public safety headquarters in Gaithersburg, this massive older building that we've retrofit and renovated and turned into a microgrid. Only gets 6% of its power from the grid. 94% of the power that huge building consumes is generated on site. These are the types of successes that the team's producing, and I thought it was important to make that public.
There you go. Well, thank you for making that statement. Thank you for the work that you all are doing. I heard about the update at Scotland. Excited about that, and not only was that announcement the partnership with the county made possible, but a number of us were up in Gaithersburg with the Green Bank, helping provide, I don't even know how many megawatts up there, but all of this in conjunction is moving us in the right direction. So thank you. So the committee, without objection, will support staff recommendations and the high priority. That's it.
And the supplemental request?
Yes, so that was the NDA, and then also, right, 2 wrapped into 1. So then, yes, we'll go along with staff recommendation on that too. Thank you, and with that, we're adjourned.